Hey everyone, this album was pointed out that I said I had done a review for it, but I did not do a review for it. So me and my big fluffy hair are going to do a review for this album finally. Long overdue. Kiss Carnival of Souls, The Final Sessions. I remember when this got leaked online. I believe it was Z Rock out of Detroit played the entire album, and I went out and bought it right afterwards. Uh, there was talk that if it hadn't been leaked, this album never would have come out. And the reason why is this is the album that the band was working on when the reunion happened. So this would be the last album to feature Bruce Kulick and Eric Singer as official parts of Kiss, along with Gene and Paul. Now, obviously, Eric Singer came back later, and it's Eric and Tommy Thayer right up until the end. So, Eric was around later, and Bruce did do some writing and some album recording, theoretically, after this as well. But this is the last album where it's supposed to be the four of them working on it together, as you would think by this photo here. And this photo on the back there. Now, all that being said, what do I think of this album? Well, for starters, I think everybody that keeps calling this Kiss's goth album, or not goth album, sorry, Kiss's grunge album, are a little special. Everybody wanted to lump everything in grunge. The second someone goes a little darker. Well, if you listen to the Revenge album and how dark the Revenge album was, the difference between this album and the Revenge album is the guitar tone. And instead of having, that clean, crisp sound that you find on the Revenge album, this one has a little more of a drone to it, which, yes, the drone is a grunge kind of thing. However, if you compare this to other, I'd say, contemporaries at that time, it's not really a grunge album. It's really kind of a closer to a new metal album in sound. If you listen to Disturbed, you listen to Limp Bizkit, Korn, all the bands that were starting out at this period and blew up a couple years later. This is closer to that sound than grunge. Sorry, I'm going to say it flat out. This is more of a new metal album than a grunge album as far as I'm concerned. You want to argue? That's what the comment section's for. We can argue it down there. Do I think that they were trying to get a piece of the grunge? Yes, it's Gene. Gene's trying to do everything. But I really think that Toby Wright, because this is produced with Toby, Gene, and Paul. Toby Wright, Gene, and Paul produced this. And I think Toby Wright probably helped keep it on track, helped keep it from becoming a complete grunge album. And once again, it's just the guitar tone. Otherwise, it's no different really than the Revenge album. Is it a darker album? Yeah, it's a darker album. It was a darker time period at that time. Like, what was this? 97 is the official release date on here. So you're looking at contemporaries like Rob Zombie, Marilyn Manson. Where else were we with the hard rock heavy metal at the time? Metallica is coming off Load and Reload. Oh, geez, there's so much more in there. And this is the thing, is everybody likes to call those all the grunge. They weren't grunge albums. They weren't. They were heavy albums, not so metally. They didn't have that sharp crispness to it. But realistically, not all metal has sharp crispness to it. Anyways, all right, that's enough of my music bias political views. Now, when it comes to this album, there are 12 songs on this album, and realistically, there's only one song on this album I'm not overly fond of. The rest of them all have good merit to them. Every last song on this album. In the Mirror is the only song that I'm not overly fond of, and that's only because I find it a little boring compared to the rest of the album. It just, eh. The first half of the album, so the first six songs on this album, are definitely the stronger six and more commercial viable six than the back half. There's a couple in the back that aren't bad, but the album's up with Hate, really good. Just lets you know where this album's going right away. When you listen to Hate, that's where right away I kind of went, this is just kind of like Disturbed and all that stuff, stuff that just came out, 5 years later. Like, arguably, this album was ahead of its time. Then you got Rain, which I thought was really good. Master and Slave is one of those ones that I don't think of it when the album's not playing, but when the album's going, I'm like, yeah, it's a total banger. Totally getting into Master and Slave. Childhood End, I really enjoy. There's something sweet and nostalgic about the song. I really enjoy it. It's very rare that Kiss does a song I would deem as an actual like kind of sweet and innocent kind of song. And Childhood's End really does kind of have that flair where to me it feels very much sweet and reminiscent and things that you generally don't expect to come out of Gene. I Will Be There, standard kind of ballad, but it's not bad. I like the way the guitar work is on this one. I really like the use of the acoustic on this one. It really was smart to go acoustic, and I really think it added something. And after everything we've been going through with all these songs already, to get into a nice, good acoustic track, that was nice. And that's something that I will thank grunge for, is bringing acoustic tracks back into albums, where you have a bunch of good heavy tracks, but then you hit one track that's got a good acoustic number, with some nice musical arrangements in it, some good picking style going on, really nice. And then it picks right back up again within the Jungle, and the Jungle, this would be, living in the urban city kind of jungle, just the crazy world that we lived in. And it's funny because as much as I say this was a dark time and stuff like that, 97, if it wasn't for the music being so bad in the mid 90s, just kind of not all music was bad, but the mid 90s really kind of for the most part musically were really kind of dark. And it's not all grunge, because goth was big and hopping at that point, stuff like that. Typo Negative and Danzig meets Kiss. That's how we're going to go with this. Take the tone of Typo Negative and Danzig and add it to a Kiss album. It really works for me as an album. It does. All right, moving on. We're on to In My Head. In My Head is the first song on this album that to me kind of falters. It's kind of got this kind of stompy, in my head, in my head. Yeah, it's something that I would have expected on an album from, once again, one of the bands that would have been coming out at that time, Disturbed, Creed. There's a few other ones in around that time period. Or when I say that time period, I mean anywhere from 97 to say 2002, 5-year period in there, okay? This could have worked for any of those bands. Stained, stuff like that. It just kind of had that foot kind of stomping, almost Pantera-like walk kind of vibe going to it. On a younger band, it works. On band like Kiss, especially when they're not doing the makeup anymore and stuff like that, not working as well. It Never Goes Away. Another song. I enjoy it when the album's playing. I don't think of it so much when the album's not playing. Seduction of Innocence. How there are no photos of Gene Simmons on Epstein Island yet, I will not figure out. Cannot figure out how there are no pictures of Gene Simmons on Epstein Island or at a Diddy party. Dude was smart. All right, Seduction of Innocence. It is actually, musically, it's a great tune. I really don't honestly pay that much attention to the lyrics on this one. A little bit, but not a lot. This is one of those ones where I get lost in the track as the track's playing musically. I Confess, another one where I get lost in it musically while the song's playing. In the Mirror, as I've already mentioned, the only song on the album I'm honestly not into at all. You know, it's the only song on this album where I'll say, nah, I just, whatever, skip. And then the album finishes with I Walk Alone. And actually, I think I Walk Alone is a great closer on the album. Sometimes you can close an album with a slower song, sometimes you can't. I Walk Alone works really perfectly to close out the album. It has a really great sound to it. Also, one of the longer songs on the album. Actually, I think it's the longest song on the album. No, not the longest, second longest song on the album. It's one of those songs. Yeah, it works. It closes out the album nicely. It's kind of a little reflective. It's definitely Gene kind of reflecting on himself, always being by himself because, you know, who can tolerate Gene for too long, right? All right, all jokes aside, I actually think this is a great album. The haters of this album are the ones that are the diehard 70s fans. Probably the diehard 80s fans too, is there are diehard 80s fans. There could be, I'm sure they're out there. But realistically for me, you know, like Revenge was the first Kiss album to come out when I truly started buying music for myself. You know, like I started buying music for myself tail end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s. Alice Cooper and the Beach Boys was mostly where I started at. My dad actually was going to get me into Kiss when I first started getting into music. He bought the Kiss Alive album on cassette, but I said I didn't know much about Kiss. I wasn't really into Kiss at the time, so he kept it for himself instead, which, you know, no worries there. I bought the CD later on. It's all good. But this is not my dad's Kiss. My dad wasn't a big fan of the Revenge album either. You know, my dad is a 70s Kiss fan. So for him, this does not work. For me being someone that, you know, this was an album that came out in my teenage years, my heyday years, you know, I think it's a good album. It's a good album even for its time. Like when I compare it to other albums at that time, I honestly do listen to this more than most other albums from any of the metal bands I listened to from the 90s. The exception being Metallica and Pantera. Metallica, Pantera, and Typo Negative. They're the only bands from this time period that I will listen to as much, if not more than this particular album, you know. Not to say it's my favorite album or it's even my favorite Kiss album. It's a really good album that I really very much enjoy from that time period. I don't know, folks. That's all I can say on this one. I think this album's kind of been. I think the fact that it got kind of shunted and pushed to the side the way it did for the reunion is what hurt this album so much. I think if the reunion had happened just a little bit later, this album would have gotten a fair run. Not necessarily a tour, but a little bit of time out on the shelves without the whole Kiss reunion thing over their head. I think this would have been a really good album. And let me tell you, it's better than everything that came out afterwards. Psycho Circus, Sonic Boom, what the hell ever else after this. No, nothing compared to this. I'm sorry. As far as I'm concerned, this was the last good Kiss album released. Anyways, my thoughts. Studio album. Last good Kiss studio album released. Kiss is a great live band. Anyways, let me know what you think down below because we'll be getting into this one next. The one that caused the big split up. Okay. The big split up and the reunion. Anyways, folks, drop me a line. Let me know in your comments down below what you think. Like button, subscribe button, bell for notifications, please. And thank you. There's a couple links worth checking out. Otherwise, folks, peace, love, and take care.